Mr. Maxwell, thank you for coming. What does Open Days mean for you? Why is it an important event for your region, and what benefits will it bring?
Well, I think Open Days provides an opportunity, first of all, for Scotland to showcase its talent and what it's doing in terms of a whole range of different issues. Of course, at the moment, how we're tackling the austerity measures and the employment problems we have in our country. But I think also it gives us a real opportunity to share talent, to share ideas across the whole of Europe. I myself hosted an event here last year during Open Days, and we brought in people from various parts of Europe to talk about what's happening in their area, but also gives us the opportunity to look in depth at a single subject. Often we, in plenary sessions, we are rushing through an opinion, we're voting very quickly, but the opportunity to spend 2, 3, 4 hours on one subject, to look at it in detail, I think is very beneficial. And it's that cross-fertilisation of ideas that I think we can then take back to our own areas and then feed back into the Scottish Government, the Scottish Parliament, and also into local government in Scotland.
Now, the Committee of the Regions is the EU's assembly of elected local and regional representatives. Which topics do you think should be a priority for the committee these days?
Well, I think there are a number of priorities, but first of all, I think the budget is very important. Obviously, it's very difficult times across Europe, so obviously members are very keen to talk about the budget, and also I think everybody wants to discuss what we can do about sustainability of employment opportunities for young people, particularly. Employment is a very difficult situation across Europe. It's difficult across the whole of the continent, and I think members must be focused on ensuring that young people get opportunities, particularly young people who are not in employment, education or training. And I think that's extremely important for all members and should be at the top of our priority list. Over and above that, I think it's very important that we invest our time and effort in ensuring that we have a sustainable environment going forward in Europe. I think the work we do on climate change and also on green energy is very important, and I think these are extremely important not only for the future of the environment of Europe, but also for employment opportunities that will come from them.
We've got the European elections coming up. How do you think cities and regions can contribute to supporting these elections, and does the Committee of the Regions have a role in here?
Well, I think obviously cities and regions usually are involved in the administration of elections, so they get involved in the process to make sure they're free and fair elections. But I think their main priority should be to ensure that the citizens of their area are aware of the elections, that they get involved in the elections, that they see how important these elections are. What happens here in Europe affects the everyday lives of people right across the continent, and I think that local government, local authorities, and also in Scotland, of course, the Scottish Government can take a very central role in ensuring the public's aware of how important they are and try and encourage them to come out and vote. Really, democracy is at stake. If people don't turn out and vote, then I think Europe's in trouble. So we have to encourage all of our citizens to make sure they take part in that process.
Okay, 2 questions about Europe 2020. Has this strategy made an impact on your region?
I think certainly politicians and those in authorities are very aware of 2020. I think one of the difficulties we have is getting that message out to businesses, to third sector, and also to the individual citizens of our area. I think the disconnect between the ordinary citizens and what happens in government is one of these problems that is shown up by 2020. It's an issue that's talked about in every meeting I go to. It's talked about by politicians everywhere, but not so much about the populace. I think probably you'd find almost nobody amongst the population knows what's happening with 2020. However, the Scottish Parliament, for example, one of its committees has taken out an inquiry to look at 2020, to look in depth and in detail about what's happening with 2020 and where we go from here. So clearly, as far as the politicians are concerned, and the parliaments and the local governments concerned, it's very important. It's just getting that message out to the populace.
Yeah, the Committee of the Regions as well is conducting a review of Europe 2020 right now. So why should local governments take part in this review, and why is it important?
Well, I think it's important because clearly we have to get this right. There's no point in continually embedding ourselves in what's happening now today. We have to look forward, we have to look towards the horizon. Horizon 2020 was all about making sure we were going in the right directions. We had the policies in place to ensure that Europe was moving in the right direction. I think it's clearly very important for that process to be reviewed as often as possible to ensure that we aren't making mistakes, that we are going in the right direction, and we continue to be focused on the future. Now, that's very important for Brussels, but I think it's very important for local authorities and for regional and national governments. I think everybody has to be focused on this. Otherwise, clearly we can end up with a situation where the policies that we are implementing now are the wrong policies for the future, and I think that obviously that review process is extremely important in making sure that doesn't happen.